So today, as the invitation said, we are going to discuss about cultural humility, okay? First, I want everyone to read like this quote. This quote was said by David Livermore. He's like a world-known specialist in like cultural intelligence. And don't worry if you don't know what is cultural intelligence or if you don't know what is cultural humility. That's why we are here. That's why we are here today to find out about that. So he said, the number of or the number one predictor of success in today's borderless world is our cultural intelligence. Wow, what a powerful affirmation, what a powerful quote. Now I want to know what is cultural intelligence, and I want to know what is cultural humility. So let's start. As the invitation said, today we are going to discuss about cultural humility. And, you know, in a way we are going to answer a question like, is cultural humility, even now that we don't know what is cultural humility, a start point or a goal that we need to reach? So by the end of this session today, we are going to get to know or to learn or discuss about what is cultural humility, what is important to talk or to learn or maybe to practice cultural humility, where I can practice cultural humility, but most importantly, how? Mostly in this work environment, right? Okay, so let's go. And before we start talking about cultural humility, I want together us as a community to remember about specific concepts or to get to learn first specific concepts. One is culture. And I don't know if you remember a couple of months ago, we discussed about like mindfulness and the relationship between mindfulness and ICD&I topics. By the way, in order to be on the same page, Enrique, could you please put in the chat what ICD&I acronym means, so we know what we are talking about, because I will be mentioning a lot ICD&I. So today we are going to discuss about culture. We are going to discuss about cultural intelligence. We are going to know what is cultural intelligence, and also we are going to know what is cultural competency. Let's start with culture, okay? As we mentioned last time, culture is a programming. It's a collective programming obtained in the course of our whole life. It's not something that you can buy. It's not something that you are going to find like randomly. No, it's something that it's going to be developed through our life, right? Which is common to members of one group. Something that I mentioned last time, and I remember like showing you the same picture because like means so much, or help me explain in a better way what culture is. Culture colors how we see the world, how we interpret things. Because if I give you like my own example, like I was born and raised here in Peru, even without me noticing and other people noticing, I have this like filter, or if we want to follow this metaphor, like a contact lens, right, of my Peruvian culture. And this is also going to be modified if we have other heritage, right? Or if we have other subcultures, because when I mention culture, not necessarily I am talking about only nationalities. So now that we know a little bit more about culture, something that we have to know about culture, it's like sometimes our intersectionality, and maybe you don't remember this concept, but it was the very first event that we had in last year about intersectionality, that we can have like different identities depending on all the different factors that we have in our life. Sometimes this can be like something inherent, right? Like these options, but also we may have like something acquired, like these ones, like income, education, work experience. So now that we know this, that each person can have like different cultures, right? Different backgrounds. Let's see this quote. And like, I just love to quote like important people. Here is Edward Hall. He's an American anthropologist who said this: culture hides more than what it reveals, and strangely enough, what it hides most effectively from its own participants. Don't you think that this means kind of this contact lenses metaphor? Like, if I ask you at this moment, can anyone tell if I am wearing or using contact lenses? Can you? That's difficult, right? And the thing with culture is that someone is not going to be able to realize that there is a contact lens in each person. But most importantly, and here says that most importantly, I don't realize that. I don't realize that I have these contact lenses. So now to see like a more graphic way, what is culture? If we like try to say that culture is like a tree, there are going to be like things that are going to be like visible, right? Like what we say, what we do, how we do things. But also there is a part of the tree that it's something that it's below the surface, that it's the roots of this tree, something that we are not going to be able to see, that are maybe the beliefs, the values, the assumptions, what is appropriate or inappropriate in a culture. We cannot see that. The very first time that we get to meet someone from a different culture, not only nationality, like just a different culture, we are not going to know exactly what is like below that surface. So this is culture. Now that we know a little bit about like what is culture, let's talk about like cultural misunderstandings. What is a cultural misunderstanding? Like, for example, if I do this to you, what that means? If I do this to you, maybe this is going to mean here in Peru, un poquito, just a little bit. Or what do you mean? Or what is wrong with you? So maybe in Peru, no? Or maybe in our family, right? In like our family, this gesture is going to have like different meanings. But depending where you are, in Egypt, or in Greece, or in Italy, it's going to mean different things, right? Like, for example, in Greece, this is going to be like, it's perfect. Or like in Italy, this is going to be like, what do you mean? Or in Egypt, this is going to mean like, please be patient. So one gesture can mean different things around the world and around different cultures. These are just examples of maybe like possibly cultural misunderstandings. And what is happening here? Like it is happening like a greeting, right? Like someone is greeting another person. So those are also like good examples of like cultural misunderstandings. Here is like a perfect view of what normally happens in like international airports, right? Where like people is going to meet someone else, maybe from a different country, maybe from a different culture, and we are going to have sometimes for some people these uncomfortable moments, like I don't know how to greet this person. Like, do I shake his hand? Do I like kiss this person? Like what can I do? So this is part of what we call like cultural misunderstandings. Now, I think we have a better idea of what culture is by now and what a cultural misunderstanding can be. Let's talk about what is cultural intelligence. This is the capability to relate and work effectively across cultures. Again, effectively across cultures, right? So this is also like a phase, or this has stages or phases that we can go through. Okay, first of all, when we talk about cultural intelligence, we are talking about like the cultural like drive that we have. So it's about like the interest and the curiosity that we have about other cultures, right? But also it's about the knowledge. Like if I will go to work for a month in Tanzania, like it is about like my interest in that culture, and that interest, it's going to become a knowledge because I will be reading or asking about this culture. But more than that, it's going to be the planning that I will do if I am going to be in contact with someone from a different culture, my awareness, right? And the top of everything is going to be like my ability to adapt and work with this new stuff from a different culture. So this is cultural intelligence. Is this capability to relate effectively, to relate and work effectively across cultures. Now that we know what is cultural intelligence, how can I improve my cultural intelligence? But I mean, good to know that we can have this type of intelligence as like social intelligence and like emotional intelligence that, by the way, are very linked to cultural intelligence. What can we do in order to improve our cultural intelligence? First of all, and sometimes we need to like, I don't know if the word is wait, but to have this sparkle, right? To be curious and to be interested in other cultures. Not necessarily means just to travel abroad or even inside of your country, if we are talking at this moment about nationalities. It's like to have this desire to get to know other cultures. For example, LGBT and Q culture, or the culture of the community with people with disabilities, and yeah, of course, also other nationalities, right? People with different religion background. Another thing that we can do in order to improve our cultural intelligence is be conscious of these contact lenses that we have. Like if I try to be, and hear this word, mindful. We said this last time in the mindfulness session or Zoom event. If we are mindful and we are present and we are like trying to like be aware, like we are going to realize that we have these contact lenses or these filters that we have due to our culture and background. And of course, put yourself in situations, of course, right? Like, let's say, if you do decide to travel, if you're going to be only like among, I don't know, expats, maybe you are not going to be able to improve like your cultural intelligence. You need to go and immerse in the culture with the people who lives there. So this is just 3 of them. Like there are other ways in order to improve your cultural intelligence, and we are going to talk about them. So far we know what is culture, what is cultural intelligence, what is cultural misunderstanding, how to improve our cultural intelligence. Now, and this is kind of the last part before we jump into what is cultural humility, is cultural competency. So cultural competency is a range of cognitive and affective and behavioral skills that lead to effective and appropriate communication across and within different cultures. So it's more than one thing, this like intercultural competency. So let me like explain you with a graphic, with this graphic. So as we said, is like this knowledge, right? Our skills, our attitudes that we can have in order to like use our intercultural competencies. When I say knowledge, what I am talking about is like to get to know my own culture, right? Like to understand why I sometimes think or behave in a specific way because I am Peruvian, or because I was born in the United States, or because I was born like somewhere else. So it is going to be to get this desire to know about other cultures, right? Also, we have the skills that it's not only like to listen about like other cultures, or to listen people, or to be quiet and observe other people. It is mostly important, this part, like viewing life from someone else's perspective. How can I view life from someone else's perspective? Remember this when we are talking about cultural humility. Viewing life from someone else's perspective. And also, besides knowledge, skills, and attitudes, we are going to have like respect, right, to other cultures. We have this openness without judgment, and this is linked to mindfulness. Remember what mindfulness was like, to be in the present moment without judging us. Okay, so it's like this openness without withholding judgment, and mostly this like tolerance, right, and even like curiosity about like viewing differences and feeling that these differences that you find when you work with someone from a different culture are like learning opportunities, moments that are going to teach you something. Okay, so now that we have like an idea of what are these like intercultural competency, this part of the knowledge and the skills and the attitudes, if you make like, if you remember, that's what the D&I Council has been doing all this year. We have been trying to improve our knowledge. We have been trying to improve our skills, our attitudes, our ICD&I skills, competencies. Why? Because we were able to talk about diversity, right? Do you remember that we talked one day about diversity, and we were saying like diversity is like who is present, but most importantly, who is not here. And if someone is not here, I am talking maybe at this moment about a minority, why? Why they are not here? So diversity is about like recognition, it's respect to other cultures, acknowledge what they have to bring to the table, this new, not new, but these other cultures, to value these cultures, to encourage them to be present, to empower them, and also to celebrate other cultures. So that's diversity. Inclusion, it's this value and practice of ensuring that people have fair access to opportunities, that they feel they belong, and that they are experienced and valued. Equity is this fair treatment, access, opportunity, no, and this eliminating barriers. So we have been learning about all these topics during this year, and this inclusion and equity is like about the what should we do in order for people to feel okay, comfortable, and included. And this is a quote of Berna Myers, by the way, you should Google, yes, you should Google Berna Myers. Like she's amazing. She's considered like a cultural change catalyst. It's the very first time that I hear that like description of a person. Just for you to know, Berna Myers is in charge of the D&I, let's say, council for Netflix. So the type of information like movies, documentals that we find in Netflix, thanks to her. I mean, talking about like diversity, inclusion, equity, thanks to her, Google her. So she said, diversity is being invited to the party, right? Because it's about the who, like who's here. Inclusion is being asked to dance, like you to feel comfortable being here, that you are going to feel included and respected. Other topics that we have been talking during this year, it's about discrimination, right? That this act of making unjust distinctions between people. Privilege, we also talked about privilege. And unconscious bias, remember Kat Fabiano? She was talking about like these stereotypes and how we can like stop or manage or at least be conscious about these stereotypes. So this is something that we are going to be able to have in mind when we are developing our cultural skills. So just to finish this part and just go directly to the cultural humility point of view. This is a graphic that it's going to explain us how these concepts are interrelated, right? And they are not separable. Like, yes, we can have like a whole different event only on diversity, only on intercultural competencies, but you cannot separate them. They work together. In Spanish, we said like, están engranados, están unidos, right? So as we said, intercultural competencies that we know is like all this knowledge, these skills, these attitudes, is the how. How can I do in order for everyone to feel like included, respected, and comfortable? How can I do what we need to do, right? In order to like how we can do it, which is the process that we need to go through. When we go to this part, like equity and inclusion is the what? What can I do? Like, do I need to learn the language? Like, do I need to have an interpreter? Do I need to like see like music that everyone is going to be able to enjoy and understand? That's the what when we talk about equity and inclusion. And if we are talking about like diversity, as I said, is the who. Who is present, but most importantly, who is not present here? So effectively and appropriately approaching equity and inclusion, sorry, here should say inclusion, in an intercultural context requires cultural humility. Finally, I had to mention all these topics and explain a little bit about them in order to explain what cultural humility is. So what I am trying to say is that in order for this machine to work in an appropriate way, we need to know, we need to practice what cultural humility is. Okay, so let's go and continue with cultural humility. So cultural humility, as the ambassador said, is a new concept. It's not something that it was like around decades. In fact, it was in 1998 that these two amazing doctors, they are both physicians, coined for the very first time this new concept. Okay, and Enrique, could you please put the link in the chat, because I want you for the ones who want, and for the ones who are interested in reading like how they ended up like thinking about a concept called cultural humility, and from their point of view, what exactly that means. Because of course, they did, or they created this concept thinking about the healthcare system, right? They are both healthcare providers. So it has kind of that point of view. So I would like you to read, if you want that information. So they are the ones who started this whole move of like cultural humility. And now we are going to know exactly what is cultural humility. So it's a lifelong process of self-reflection, self-critique, and commitment to understanding and respecting different points of view and engaging humbly, authentically, and from a place of learning. That's cultural humility. So it's so interesting that we have this concept that goes beyond what we were used to, because we were used to intercultural competency, right? We were used to this, like getting to know information and getting to know like different concepts, and that was it. But this is a new definition that allows me to go like further more. So let's go to the next one, just to mention exactly, or in a more in steps. Cultural humility is this nurturing a lifelong commitment. So remember what I said before, a process. It is now like even a commitment of self-reflection and self-critique. So it's myself, instead of judging other of why he or she answered in that way, or why he act in that way, it's me accepting that I have these contact lenses that maybe are making me misunderstand certain things. Also is readdressing power of imbalance, because remember that I told you that it was in a like healthcare like a field that this was like that this concept started. So it was like, you, because are a doctor, you are not the master of like everything, and even that you are a doctor, you don't know anything. Well, I will not say anything. You don't know much about the culture of your patient. So that's why they put redressing the power imbalance. Also, is developing mutually beneficial partnership. Also, it's advocating and maintaining accountability. So as you can realize, cultural humility is like way beyond just to have cultural intelligence. It's way beyond just to have intercultural competency. Let's go to the next one. Just to give you like a comparison, so we get to understand which one is the difference between like intercultural competency and cultural humility. So first of all, intercultural competency used to be felt like mastery or being expert in. I will give you an example. If I finish my first master in ICD&I topics, I will get intercultural competency, because I will just finish getting to know about specific concepts. From the cultural humility point of view, I will never be a master or expert in someone else's culture. I barely can be conscious about my own culture, like how I will be expert in someone else's culture. So cultural humility says, we will always be learning. We will always be students. From the intercultural competency point of view, what we need to learn has an endpoint, a rigid path. It's going to be so technical, like just getting information, understanding, and that's it. From the cultural humility point of view, it's a lifelong process, And remember, it's not even a process, it's a commitment that we may decide to make. It's a life journey. It's not a rigid path. It's not just finishing your first master or do a PhD in these topics. It's a life journey that you are going to go through your whole life because it's a personal experience. So let's go to the next one, and I think are like the last slides. Cultural. If you Google cultural humility, and I invite you to Google as soon as we finish here, because try to be mindful, try to just do one thing at a time, be present in this moment. If you Google cultural humility, one of the first graphics that you are going to see is a pyramid. It's a pyramid because in a way, what we are trying to explain is that, well, first you need to like have these cultural competencies, this knowledge about ICD&I or culture, these skills, these attitudes, and then you are going to be able to reach cultural humility. So this is what normally like you are going to find in the internet. So here I have that audacity to propose something to the 60 people who is here. By the way, did you realize that for a year we have been kind of the same people, kind of the same amount? That makes us a community. That makes us to be able to say that we have our own culture, the culture of the group of people willing to be in sometimes uncomfortable moments, learning about something that sometimes it's difficult to talk, and we have this way to do things. That's culture. So this is what I propose. I propose that it is not like a pyramid. It is not that we need to learn a lot about definitions or concepts of intercultural competency. I say, now that we know what is cultural humility, like the 60 people who is here, let's make a virtue cycle. Because we do want to be culturally humble and understand that we will never learn or master someone else's culture, no matter if we are talking about someone from like the community of disability, or if we are talking about the LGBTQ and Q community, or if we are talking about nationalities. I will never ever like get to understand everything. So with that sparkle that cultural humility brought us today, let's try to improve our cultural competencies. And because we are going to be improving daily our like intercultural competencies, let's practice every day cultural humility. Let's always have this idea that I will learn everything. I will learn every day something new. So to finish, now that we know what is cultural humility, right? How can I practice this at work? Like how I will be able to do it correctly, right? Even that to say correctly, like make sound in my brain. There is no, when we talk about like D&I, like which culture is correct or not, but if we want to improve our cultural humility, mostly at work, and we are talking about like people who works for an embassy, from the like US embassy in Lima, we can do certain things. One is to create a safe but also a brave space. What the D&I Council have been doing every month since last year is trying to give you that, to give you and us that space, to recognize certain things, like to accept and recognize that we are human beings and we are going to be biased sometimes, that sometimes we are going to make or say something that it's going to be hurtful for someone else, and to be okay to talk about that among each other. Another thing is like engage in open and crucial talks. This means to invite everyone to talk. And that's what we have been doing, inviting people just to talk about their own experience, so we can see life from their points of view, their perspective. Listen for what matters to other people, and self-reflect, right? To pay attention to what people is saying, and not just assume, not be assuming things, and advocate, be an ally in order to transform for the better this like culture that we have developed for the last year, and that I am sure it's going to have like good consequences in general for the whole mission. Like, there is a reason why leadership is always here, right? Cultural humility toolkit. This is something that if you want, you can take a picture. Now you can like take your phone and take a picture, because this is something that it's going to be very helpful. For example, engage people who are different than you on a personal experience level. Don't be afraid, or okay, be afraid, but overcome that scary moment, that uncomfortable moment, to reach, to connect with someone. Share your culture. If you're Peruvian, but also you have Chinese heritage, just talk about it, learn about it, understand what that means. Be curious, be empathic about like other people's life experiences. Listen and talk about uncomfortable concepts like racism, like sexism, classism. This is an open space for you to do it, or for learn about that. Be prepared when people like brings up your diversity. We talk about like to be aware, to have a plan, right? When we were discussing about like cultural intelligence, have a plan on how you are going to confront these moments, that maybe you need to say, please don't say that, or you are wrong. And always have this beginner mind, like you don't know much about other cultures, even that you were working with people from that culture for like a lot of years. So to finish, I will ask you, because I won't be able to give you the answer. I mean, I have my personal answer, but is cultural humility, now that we know what is cultural humility, a start point or a goal to reach? Think about that. And of course, we were able to discuss what is cultural humility. We were able to realize that the reason why we want to practice cultural humility is because it's going to allow us to improve our cultural competency or intercultural competency, and start this virtue cycle where, well, let's start at work. I mean, you have like almost 60 people who know what you are going to be talking about, but also everywhere, with your family, with your friends. And how? We have just mentioned how we can do it. So I hope this quick presentation gave you a little bit more information about like cultural humility. And if you have any question, please don't hesitate to reach myself or the D&I Council. Thank you so much. Enrique, back to you.
Thank you so much, Suni, for this amazing presentation, for defining these concepts, and especially for like the last part where you give us these specific tasks we can do in order to apply cultural humility, right? And we're all learning, like Carola said, right? We are all growing in terms of intercultural competencies. Thank you for that. I see DCM McNamara, I see your hand raised. Would you like to participate? Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Enrique and Dr. Suni. Wow, what a great presentation. People would pay a fortune to hear that and learn from you in that sort of Socrates-like teaching method where you cause us to think and reflect and take this time that we set aside each month to kind of really think about things that in the hustle of life we don't always give sufficient attention to. I think once again, what makes this D&I process that we're all involved in so helpful is that information is brought for consideration and in a way that brings us together as opposed to some other outcome. I mean, it makes folks want to act on these concepts that maybe we weren't very self-aware of previously. And I'll just share, one thing that I took away from it, a real life example that I credit this committee for, is there's a new committee forming here in the embassy. And it's for good reasons, it's going to be very productive. But when I first became aware of it, it looked like it wasn't as representative, as inclusive, as transparent as maybe we would want it for everybody in the embassy. People who work on computers and people who work in the an outdoor setting or work in homes and with machinery. So we delayed the initiation of that first meeting so that we could make an extra effort to get a wider cross section of folks from around the embassy, from all of the different grades and also different types of work functions, because I am sure better ideas, more mutual respect, all sorts of positive outcomes will come from that. So we're putting, at least I can say in my little way, we're putting it to work, and I thank you for that. And if I could just mention one thing, when we talked about the cultural humility, one reason I think we need to be especially humble about our cultures is they change. And if we take too strong a position today, we may find that our culture morphs over time. I mean, if you went back 100 or 200 years in Peruvian history or United States history, many of the norms we accept as part of who we are today, part of our culture, would not be recognized, would not be understood, would not be supported back then. And things can sometimes change in a long term or sometimes short term. When you were talking about the handshakes, how many of you, like me, have been in this situation where 3 years ago, we would have known exactly how to greet a colleague here in Peru, male, female, by age, all of the things that are part of our DNA, being respectful to people. But now someone extends a hand, but the other person doesn't want to insult them. They'll extend a fist. Somebody wants to do the elbow. Some people just say, hey, it's great to see you, but let's not touch. And those are things that we live through every single day. So sometimes over the span of time, cultural norms change. And sometimes based on events like a global pandemic, it affects how we interact with each other. And we need to be cognizant of what the other person's comfortable doing. So thank you once again. Great session and great leadership by the outgoing team and the incoming team. Thank you.
Thank you, DCM McNamara. Thank you for sharing that. And those are powerful examples too of representation. All right, so there are no other, is there any other question or comment? All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Suni, for this amazing presentation. See some comments in the chat. We have our next month is Black History Month. So we will be advertising some other events that we are organizing as the council. All right, so thank you so much, Suni. Thanks everyone for joining today's session. I look forward to our next session next month. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.